The episode begins with the third angel, Suchiel's approach to Japan from the ocean. The coast is lined with tanks and the surrounding areas are under a state of emergency, having been evacuated. In an empty city, 14-year-old Shinji Ikari tries to reach the woman who promised to pick him up, but resolves to instead find a shelter as the phone lines are dead. He then notices a girl in a school uniform standing in the middle of the street nearby who disappears when he briefly looks away. Later on, as Misato and Shinji drive away, the UN forces throw everything they have at the angel, failing to even injure it. Sitting behind the three UN generals, Commander Gendo Ikari and Sub-Commander Kozo Fuyatsuki of NER review muse that normal weapons are useless because of the angel's protective field. Misato and Shinji then arrive at NERV headquarters, which sits underground in a massive artificial dome known as the Geofront. The two talk as they ride the tram down, and it is revealed that they both have problematic relationships with their fathers. Shortly after, Gendo Ikari then appears before Shinji, telling him to pilot Unit 01 against the angel or leave. Shinji refuses despite Misato's attempts to convince him. Meanwhile, as Rai Ayanami, who Shinji seemingly saw in the street earlier, struggles to sit up, Suchiel reaches the city's edge and blasts a hole in the geofront. Shinji then runs to the collapsed Rie, and upon seeing the extent of her injuries, convinces himself that he mustn't run away. Shinji is then placed in the entry plug and inserted into the spine of Unit 01. The episode ends with Unit 01 staring across the city at Suchiel and Misato hoping for Shinji's safety. Shinji is preparing to face the angel in Evangelion Unit 01. Shinji's feeder makes his attempt to move his Eva fail, vulnerable to the angel's attack. The angel then proceeds to seriously damage the Eva, breaking its left arm and piercing through its skull. The pilot's signal is lost and the Eva shuts down. The scene then cuts to the hospital, where Shinji suddenly wakes up, noting that he doesn't recognize where he is. Meanwhile, Gendo is instructed not to let the reappearance of the angels allow the human instrumentality project to fall behind schedule. Later on, Misato takes Shinji to be assigned accommodation, but discovers that he is to live on his own. Misato and Shinji arrive at Misato's apartment, which happens to be in a really messy state. The latter tries to enter as a guest, but Misato insists that the apartment is now his home, which Shinji reluctantly agrees to. Later, while taking a bath, Shinji meets Pen in the bathroom and is so startled that he runs back into the kitchen to tell Misato, who explains that Pen is their other roommate and advises Shinji to cover up. Shinji then lies alone in his bedroom listening to his SDAT player while Misato speaks with Ritsuko on the phone about their situation. Shortly after, a flashback begins which shows the events of the earlier battle of Suchiel attacking the Unit 01. However, later, once the barrier is down, Unit 01 soundly defeats Suchiel by shattering the down angel's core. As NERV regains control of the Evangelion, Shinji comes to in the entry plug where he screams in terror before the scene abruptly cuts back to Shinji in his room. 3 weeks have passed since the events of the first episode. Shinji tries to adjust to his new life in Tokyo 3, but has little interest in piloting and his relations with Misato are still distant. At the beginning of the episode, he is seen lethargically going through a simulation training. The next morning, he tries to wake Misato up while a female radio announcer talks about scuba diving and tells the audience that the Earth no longer has seasons, but instead has consistent weather year-round. Later on at school, we are introduced to Shinji's classmates, Kensuke Aida, Toji Suzuhara, and Hikari Horaki, the class rep. We also meet their teacher, who seems to teach nothing but the history of the second impact. Rie is in the class too, her eye and arm still bandaged, looking out the window. Kensuke is a military geek who seems to be the only one enjoying the fact that Earth seems to be suddenly at war. Shortly after, Rai arrives to tell Shinji that there is an emergency call. Shamshel, another angel, is approaching Tokyo 3 and the conventional firepower is of no effect on it. Shinji then begins fighting a defensive battle, attempting to protect Toji and Kensuke rather than defeat the angel. Inside the entry plug, Toji sees Shinji's great anguish and pain as he fights the angel and is beset by remorse. Misato orders to Shinji to retreat, but he charges at Shamshel with the Evangelion's progressive knife, defeating the angel just as his power runs out. Days later, Kensuke gives Toji Shinji's phone number so he can apologize. Toji attempts to call, but stops. Misato wakes up on a rainy day and wonders if Shinji is going to skip school again after 5 days of his battle against Shamshel. She then goes to check on his room only to see it empty with Shinji's ID card and a letter to her. Being worried about his sudden absence, Toji and Kensuke go to his place but got surprised for seeing Misato for the first time. Later, Shinji boards a local train and rides it all day, repeatedly listening to tracks 25 and 26 on his SDAT, leaving only when the train is taken out of service. He tells himself, "I've got to go back," but instead attends a late-night showing of a movie about Second Impact. Meanwhile, back at NERV headquarters, Ritsuko is examining Rie and Misato is with her talking about Shinji and what occurred before he left. After he was rebuked by Misato by disobeying her orders to retreat in the last episode and thinks he shouldn't pilot it if doing that will only bring pain to him. During his walk in the forest, Kensu tells Shinji that Toji was sorry for what he has done and that his sister scolded him for that. At NERV headquarters, Misato asks Shinji if he doesn't want to pilot Unit 01, then he shouldn't if he is to continue with his attitude. Ritsuko informs Gendo that Shinji will leave Tokyo 3 the next day, which he replied Evangelion Unit 01 to be reconfigured for Rie. Later, while Shinji is being taken away to leave Tokyo 3, Misato realized that Shinji accepted her offer to live with him because he wanted a family and rushes to the train station. Shinji, however, hasn't boarded the train yet, and soon he mentions that he is now home. 22 days before the first episode, this episode starts with the failed activation test of Evangelion Unit 00 as it has gone berserk, breaking into the test facility, and the entry plug has ejected automatically, resulting in Rie's injuries which were shown before. Commander Ikari goes to the entry plug and opens the superheated hatch to save Rie. Back in the present, Ritsuko tells Misato that mental instability in the pilot might be the cause of the incident. As Shinji watches his father who is examining the dead angel's core, he notices the burns on his hands and asks Ritsuko and Misato about them. Ritsuko tells Shinji about the berserk incident. Later in the evening, Ritsuko is eating dinner at Misato's place. Misato prepared the food, so it consists entirely of beer and under-diluted instant ramen, and only Misato finds it edible. Ritsuko then asks Shinji to deliver Rie's new NERV ID card, since she forgets to do so. When he looks embarrassed about going to a girl's home, Misato teases him. The next morning, Shinji goes to Rie's room and rings the bell, but finding the door unlocked, he receives no answer and walks in. Later, Rie and Shinji arrive at HQ where Rie's card doesn't work, so Shinji finally manages to hand her the new one. Shortly after, Rie undergoes a successful reactivation. Just then, Ramiel, the fifth angel, approaches Tokyo 3 and Gendo orders Unit 01 to be dispatched and Unit 00 to stay at the headquarters since the reactivation test has just finished. The angel then senses the Evangelion's presence and attacks it as it reached the surface, boiling the LCL inside the plug where Shinji is contained. This episode resumes the end of episode 05. Shinji is launched in Unit 01, but the angel sensed the EVA and shot it before the removal of the restraints. Unit 01 is recovered and Shinji is rescued and hospitalized. The angel then settles over NERV headquarters and began to drill into the Geofront's armor plating. Later, while Shinji is recovering, Misato comes up with a reckless plan to destroy Ramiel with a positron B rifle fired from outside Ramiel's attack zone. Gendo approves this plan and Misato requisitions a huge positron rifle from the JSSDX labs. After a while, Shinji regains consciousness and Rie enters his hospital room to brief him on the plan's schedule. When he says that he does not want to pilot the Evangelion, she replies she will pilot it instead and then leaves the room saying goodbye. Later, Misato and Ritsuko explain to Shinji and Rie their rules and the weapons work. While the two pilots are preparing for the mission, Rie reassures Shinji that she will protect him. The time now is midnight and Operation Yashima has been commenced. Ramiel starts to charge to attack the Evangelion and shoots toward it along with the rifle's shot, resulting in the collision of the two beams and the two shot have missed. Rie then and Evangelion Unit 00 steps in and shield Unit 01 from Ramiel's beam, but both the shield and Unit 00 sustain severe damage in the process. Shinji fires his second shot, which pierces the angel and kills it, stopping the drill. Rie is unharmed and unfazed. When a confused Rie says she doesn't know what to feel at such time, Shinji asks her to smile. This episode begins with a phone conversation between Gendo and an unknown person who tells Gendo that he has answered the information requests with falsified data, and then asks if he should do something about that project. Gendo tells him that no further action is needed, and the unknown man says that he will continue as planned. Later, Gendo boards an aeroplane and has a conversation with an unknown person, where we learn that the budget for building Evangelion Unit 06 has been approved by the UN members, except for the USA, and that his country will participate in building Unit 08. The next morning at breakfast, Shinji and Pen Pen are surprised to see Misato ready and in dress uniform. She is going with Ritsuko to a private company's demonstration of its angel-fighting giant robot, Jet Alone, in Old Tokyo. Shortly after, the beginning of launching Jet Alone begins without problems until it has gone out of control and its reactor has gone critical. As the radio command circuit has been broken, Misato decides to catch Jet Alone with Unit 01, enter Jet Alone wearing a radiation suit, and delete its programming directly. However, there is a delay to get permission to tell her the delete code HOPE. Shinji catches Jet alone and Misato successfully boards it, but the password fails and Misato attempts to push the control rods back into Jet alone's reactor herself. The next morning, everything is back to normal at the Misato residence. Shinji is as upset as usual until Toji and Kensu point out that she shows him a side of her personality that no one else sees because she considers him family, which pleased Shinji. This episode opens with a telephone conversation between Gendo and an unknown person, wherein we learn that the cargo has left Sasebo and is coming across the Pacific. We then join Shinji, Misato, Toji, and Kensuke aboard a helicopter. Misato tells them they are on a date, but Toji and Kensuke are actually along as cover, so that no one will know that this is an official business. Later on, during a conversation between Misato and the captain about who has authority over activating Unit 02 in the ocean, Ryoji Kaji enters the scene, who is escorting Asuka from Eniro's German branch to Japan. Shortly after the meal, when Asuka once again comments on how boring Shinji is, Kaji tells her he had over a 40% synchro ratio with Evangelion Unit 01 without training in combat. This surprises her so much that she feels a need to impress him as well, so she takes him to the transport ship to see her Eva. Just then, Gagi, the sixth angel, attacks, damaging several of the warships. Asuka sees her chance to impress Shinji and forces him to put on a plug suit and accompany her inside the Evangelion. During a fight, the captain warns Misato that Unit 02 has B-type equipment and can't fight underwater, but Misato tells Asuka to go ahead. Shinji and Asuka then make a plan which successfully works, and the blast propels Unit 02 back onto the carrier's deck. Meanwhile, Kaji has arrived at NER of HQ with his cargo and asks if it, and not Unit 02, was the Angel's actual target. Gendo agrees. The next day at school, Toji is telling Shinji and Kensuke how glad he is that he won't be seeing Asuka again, but is shocked when she enters their class and introduces herself as a new student. This episode opens with a series of camera shots of Asuka in the school, and then Asuka is shown opening her shoe locker full of love letters which she steps on. Then we learn that the pictures were taken and are being sold by Kensuke and Toji. Asuka offers to be good friends with Rie, saying it will be convenient, but gets perplexed when Rie answers, "If I'm ordered to, I'll do it." After witnessing this conversation, Toji wonders if only weirdos are chosen to be Evangelion pilots. Later, the on-station cruiser Haruna reports that a large object has been detected approaching the Key Peninsula. The seventh angel, Israfel, has begun its attack. Shinji and Asuka are sorted in Unit 01 and Unit 02. We then cut to the aftermath of the battle, in which both pilots were defeated and their Evas ended up upside down. Following this event, in a debriefing, we discover that the task of stopping the angel was transferred to the UN. Later on, Toji and Kensuke drop by to visit Shinji and are surprised when they meet Ikari, who has come to visit Asuka. All three are shocked that Shinji and Asuka are living together and even matching outfits yet again, until the situation is explained to them when Misato comes back with Rie. The day of the battle arrives. Shinji and Asuka launch their coordinated assault to music selected by Kaji. The plan works perfectly, except that after destroying both cores with a flying dropkick, they miss their landing and fall in a heap. The episode ends with them bickering over whose fault it is. Asuka is enjoying shopping with Kaji, though he seems embarrassed when realizing she is shopping to look for swimsuits for the upcoming school trip to Okinawa. When she asks him where he went on his class trip, he replies that he didn't have one because of the second impact. Back home, Asuka is angry when she learns that the pilots can't go on the trip because they are on standby for an angel attack. Later on, after seeing their friends off at the airport, Shinji and Asuka headed for the pool. There, Shinji studies and Asuka and Rie go swimming. Asuka tries to flirt with Shinji. She asks him what he's studying and leans over to look, giving him a face full of her breasts. Meanwhile, the eighth angel, Sandalphon, has been spotted in the crater of Mount Asama, an active volcano. Sandalphon is yet to hatch and resembles a human embryo inside a chrysalis. Gendo orders Misato to have the Evangelions capture the unborn angel. He explains his decision to the committee, who become quite alarmed. There is then a scene where Kaji and a mysterious woman holding a puppy discuss the dangers of the mission. Shortly after, once again calling for Shinji to watch her, Asuka plunges into the magma. The external pressure begins to build as Misato orders the Eva lowered beyond its rated capacity. Asuka's progressive knife snaps loose and is lost. However, towards the end, they manage to destroy the angel. Later, as they relax at a nearby hot springs, Asuka notices Misato's scar, and Misato explains that she got it during the second impact. The episode opens as Ritsuko, Maya, and Oba are doing their laundry. They then board a train and meet Vice Commander Fuetsuki, who complains that he is always given the trivial duties and the city council being nothing but a figurehead, with the Magi supercomputers doing all the job. Meanwhile, at NER of the HQ, Misato boards an elevator. Kaji runs after her and, despite her pushing the close button, joins her. At this time, Shinji calls his father to tell him that Shinji needs Gendo to show up for a career discussion interview at the school. Later, Shinji, Asuka, and Ria arrive at NERV and find that their cards won't open the gate. Inside, Gendo and Fuetsuki realize that the power must have been sabotaged. Misato tries to call out of the elevator but can't get anyone. Alba also tries to call but finds that all phone lines are down. Meanwhile, the waiting JSSDF commanders decide to warn Tokyo 3 directly by sending an aircraft to warn the city about the Angel's attack. Later on, while navigating through a shortcut, Asuka leads them up the wrong path again, opens a door and encounters Madara face-to-face before panicking and slamming the door shut. Asuka then orders Shinji not to look forward and gives him a flurry of kicks to the face when he disobeys, which made the duct crash, dropping them out of the vents into the EVA launch area with Shinji and Asuka landing in a heap, Rie nimbly landing on her feet. Rie then volunteers for defense, but Asuka has reserved that role for herself and gives Rie the backup role, and towards the end, Madara gets destroyed. Later, Shinji once again speculates about the Angel's motives. Asuka thinks that such speculation is meaningless because there's no way to know why. The episode begins with a flashback from 2008. As second impact occurs in Antarctica, Dr. Katsuragi, Misato's father, saves her life by shoving her into an escape capsule. Adam, as a giant of light, is briefly seen, and giant wings appear in the cloud vortex over Antarctica as the capsule floats to safety. Back and present at NERV headquarters, after the harmonics test, Ritsuko reveals that Shinji's cinch rate is rapidly rising and he will soon catch up to Asuka, which seemed irritating for the latter and leaves angrily. Meanwhile, in Antarctica, Gendo and Fuetsuki are on board an aircraft carrier in a sea of red, where an urgent message from NERV HQ is received, notifying that the 10th Angel has been detected in the Earth orbit. Later, Misato orders all civilians evacuated in a 50-kilometer radius and concocts what seems to be an impossible plan. Using their act fields at full strength, the three Evas will catch the falling angel with their hands and then destroy it. In the subsequent scene on their way to their Evas, Shinji asks Asuka why she pilots. She replies that she wants to prove something to the world. When she throws the question back at him, he doesn't have an answer. The time comes at last. The Evas race to the impact spot, Shinji arriving first. He struggles to hold up the angel until Rie and Asuka join him. Asuka then uses her knife to stab the now vulnerable core, causing the angel to self-destruct. Gendo then calls, and when Misato tries to apologize for the damage done to Unit 01, he tells her she did well. The episode begins with Ritsuko Akaji completing a routine maintenance test of the Magi supercomputer system, followed soon by an autopilot test for the three EVA pilots. The pilots are supposed to enter simulation bodies without their plug suits, and after a thorough disinfection, the pilots enter the simulation plugs. The entry plugs for the simulation bodies kept inside the Prigma box, while the Magi monitor the data coming off their bodies. Maya informs Ritsuko of the corrosion in the protein wall above, but since it does not pose any problems to the test for the moment, Ritsuko decides to go ahead. Without warning, Rie screams and her simulation body starts moving and trying to break free of its restraints. It raises a hand towards the control booth, but the arm is severed by a blasting bolt and the pilots are ejected at once. The massive corrosion is fired upon with lasers, but to everyone's shock and horror, it deploys an AT field, revealing itself to be 11th Angel Irule. Meanwhile, Ritsuko and Misato attempt to fight the angel without the Evas. An attempt to destroy the angel with an excess of oxygen fails as the angel evolves, soon turning into a system of electronic circuits that attacks NERV's computer systems. Later, Ritsuko explains the nature of this new angel, a colony of microscopic entities working together to evolve and form intelligent circuits, and details a plan to counterhack the angel and program it to reach an evolutionary dead end, where it will have no choice but to die. Irule finally breaks through the firewall and completes infecting Balthasar. The Magi are promptly restored to their normal status, and Irule dies out.